Okay, I've been wanting to do this video for a while, but I have been saving footage and gathering knowledge for the last couple years because today I'm going to tell you all about my Excision update. Okay, so I gave you a little glimpse earlier and I'm not holding it for bait. I just want to give you guys a lot of information before I do all the zooms and the close-ups. But as always, I have a lot of research and information to share so you all understand in case anybody here ever needs an excision, stitches of any kind, cortisone injections, PDL laser, scar sheets, etc., etc. As I mentioned, I have been studying this for 2 years. Plus, because I live in Greece part-time, I have to tell you guys, in the 7 years that I have been working on that TV series, I have learned so much about how important certain nutrients are in our diet externally and internally. And yes, that has a lot to do with this video. Now, if you just want to go to see the final results, although I don't recommend that, please feel free to use the timestamps and chapters. We're all busy people, and that's why I have them there. But there are people who want to know a lot more information and details. And since I've researched this, studied this, and have interviewed experts over the last 7 years, I think this is really imperative to understand. The background of this, I'm going to keep this quite short. I had a odd growth right here, and after seeing many doctors for years and years, and it was growing, it kind of looked like a mole, but they really didn't know what it was. I finally got several sort of final opinions, and it was 4 that it came down to. The first one was, let's just do an excision. It's like a mini operation where they excise the growth and just remove it, and they stitch you up. The second one was shave it off, and then also shave off several layers of your skin, and let's see what happens there, sort of like what they do with certain moles. And then the third one was a laser, and let's just laser it off because it's more cutting edge as far as like scars and lesions and even moles. And then the fourth opinion was similar to the first one. So they had the same concept for the final result. They had a little bit of a different methodology. One was a surgeon, one was a derm. And I want to preface this by saying that 3 of the 4 opinions came from medical doctors, including surgeons, and one of them came from a laser clinic. And the laser clinic consulted with their doctor. If you don't know, right now I'm in Toronto. I don't know how this works provincially, federally, or internationally, but this specific laser clinic needs to have the approval of their doctor. So they actually need to have a doctor on consult staff where they consult with bigger cases like this. Okay, so they were all professional opinions. In the end, I chose to go with a very prominent dermatology clinic based in Toronto. Throughout this video, I will not be giving any names or clinics because I just don't think it's fair. I think everyone's experience is individual, and of course I don't want to have any issues with them, but in the very end, when I'm speaking about the group of doctors I have been working with in Greece, I will give their information because I have interviewed them on camera. Okay, so that's a little bit of the background of what I had. Now, what happened during the procedure? I went in and this doctor said to me, it's easy breezy. I'm going to excise it and I'm going to stitch you up, and you're going to have I remember him saying this, you're going to have just a linear scar, and throughout the years, it's going to go away. It's going to be so tiny. It's going to be so beautiful. He made it seem like it was nothing. I was apprehensive about it. I thought about it, and I went back a month later. So I went ahead and I did that. And I have to say it was excruciatingly painful. He was very surprised at the pain that I was enduring. And then afterwards, he said to me, you'll be fine. This is it. Come in for a checkup for 2 weeks. I could barely drive home. And from that night, for the next 24 hours, I had no sleep. I had excruciating pain, and I knew something was wrong. Within the next few days, I did see blood coming out of the bandages he had put on it, I followed his instructions to a T. And because of this area, anytime you get an excision here, or any kind of stitches, it's a very delicate area and it's hard to heal, which he did not tell me. So I exercise every single day. I am CamFit Pro certified. As a side note, I don't teach anymore, but I do participate in fitness every single day. I actually didn't work out for 2 weeks because he told me that, because I just wanted it to heal so beautifully. So he was very cognizant of that, and I felt very, very safe in his hands. I do want to make that clear. Like, he was very pleasant to work with. And this is another reason why I don't want to condemn him in this video. Nevertheless, when I took the bandages off at home, my family, who I showed it to, said, you know what, this looks like it's going to heal quite well. They could see the linear stitch. And of course, there's a lot of bruising and blood around it. And it was just a bloody mess. But they seemed to all come to the same conclusion, that it would heal well, even though I was in excruciating pain. So the next step is critical, guys. When I went there, it was time to remove the stitches. Stitches and the types of stitches that a physician will use depends on the procedure and depends on your wound and depends on your location. When I went to see the second doctor at the hospital in Toronto, one of the first questions that she gave me prior to injecting me with saline or the PDL laser was, what type of stitches did the doctor use? Because in her professional opinion, what should have been used are stitches for plastic surgery, because they will hold together your wound better and you have a much better chance of that linear scar not stretching and stretching and stretching and becoming this, what I have today, which is like, it's essentially like it's like the shape of my eye. That's my scar right now. And it's big and lumpy like a keloid. It's raised instead of being like that linear line that I was promised. But she really alluded to the fact that this should have been major plastic surgery. That's what she told me. Shouldn't have been done in a derm's office. Should have been major plastic surgery. Dissolvable stitches should have been used, and it should have been treated like a cosmetic plastic surgery. All news to me. All of the 4 consults that I had and the 4 opinions, nobody referred to it with that severity. But I guess hindsight's always 20/20 when she saw the final result. Nevertheless, I let it go, but that's when I really delved into the research about stitches, dissolvable versus non-dissolvable. And that's really key in this story, because instead of it healing like a linear, beautiful, like smooth line, the stitches couldn't hold it together. And this is a very vulnerable area. And this is an area where you can get a lot of scarring. She did tell me that, the second doctor. This is the way it healed. It just, the weight and the pressure just kept stretching the scar, stretching the scar, stretching the scar. And so it became like what I have right now, like a shape of an eye instead of like a thin line. So that's why the stitches ended up being so important in this story. I started to develop scarring, and it started to look like a keloid scar, which is a raised scar. And what that is, it's a lot of scar tissue. It's when your body has developed a lot of collagen underneath there and it's pushing it up. It definitely happens in times where you have wounds and your body is trying to close up that wound. And that's why a lot of the times they say use silicone scar pads, which we're going to get to that section. He was very, very confident that it would go down, but the scar wasn't going down, and it was continuing to raise. So I kept going back, and he said, okay, this has raised so much, we're going to start doing cortisone shots for you. Cortisone shots or keloid shots, they are a steroid, and it comes in different amounts. So the doctor will definitely choose the amount that he thinks is best for your specific case. And this is also key in my case as well. And it helps reduce your body's inflammation. So just think about it as a steroid that helps reduce inflammation. One of the biggest cons of getting cortisone or keloid shots is that you could get an atrophic scar, an atrophy, a groove. Fast forward to when I met the doctor at the hospital. She did tell me about the cortisone shots, but before I had gone in, I researched them, and what I saw was that large doses of cortisone shots could lead to atrophy. It's all about the dose that your doctor will give you. And I talked to her about that, and she said I was 100% accurate in my research. And now that I get a little bit of cortisone shots in some very large blemishes, I always tell the doctor, I show them my scar, I tell them what happened to me, and I tell them to use a very small amount, and I've never had a problem. So I am going to assume that the atrophic part of my scar prior to the saline shots was due to a very high dosage of cortisone. Again, that's just an alleged opinion based on my research, not being an MD. I had a large atrophic scar now that was dark in color, and it wasn't going away. So the last time I went into him, he said, I'm no longer touching this. You're going to go see a specialist at a certain hospital. Okay, I'm not going to name the hospital. When she saw the scar, she literally put her finger in it. So this is a massive atrophic scar. And the first thing I'm going to do is give you saline shots. So she gave me saline shots. The saline's going to help you now raise the scar because we've created a groove. And then the pulse dye laser is going to help you with the redness. Okay, so let's talk about the pulse dye laser. It's a yellow light. And what happens is if you have like a port wine stain, you see a lot of those people that have like purple or red stains. A lot of them are birthmarks. What will happen is she will zap that area with this pulsing yellow light to treat the abnormal blood vessels in the skin. That light is then converted to heat. It's going to make the scar darker, and then that scar, over time, the theory is it becomes lighter. And I did speak to a few professionals about this, and they seem to think that this was really the gold standard of lasers for lightening scars. So of course, I went with it. I did several saline shots, and the saline shots did raise the scar. So I liked that because I remember filming and somebody asked me if that was a bullet wound. I mean, it was just a ridiculous question, but it had a groove. So I was really happy that that groove was gone. So I now had more of a raised scar. I went in with 2 pulse dye lasers. I'm going to show some footage here. And then when they started to subside, they sort of just went back to normal. So it did get darker, very dark, very red, very purple. It was painful, but it was tolerable pain, and it was very expensive. But when all that was said and done, it just went back to the same redness. When I went back to see the specialist in the hospital, and this was my last visit there, she said, I'm not touching it anymore. I cannot help you anymore, but I want you to wear, moving forward, 24 hours a day, I want you to wear a scar gel pad cover. And she said, I only want you to take it off when you shower. Of course, I didn't know better, so I did that. And I will show you them here, what they look like. It's you can also get like a silicone gel, or you can get like a silicone scar pad. And I did a lot of research about them, and the research was very promising because what doctors were saying was that what a raised scar needs is it needs a lot of pressure. So it needs you to just really massage it daily, several times a day, put a lot of pressure on it, and that scar will slowly subside. As far as like the keloid scar, it should go down. Meanwhile, if you read even more recent literature, it does say keloid scars won't go away. So I don't think they had actually classified this as a keloid scar. So I had definitely tried a lot of different scar sheets, and then this is the latest one I had tried. This one I ended up just getting from Walmart because at this point I was spending so much money on scar sheets and scar gel. So I was rubbing it down. I had this on, and the next thing that happened was really surprising. So I was traveling back and forth, and the scar sheets did stay on. It was sort of out of sight, out of mind. But when I took it off, I did notice that it was pretty awful, especially when it was exacerbated. And when was that? Whenever excessive blood flow went to that scar. And when was that? Every time I exercised, and I exercised daily. So what happened was it started to get red and very itchy. So back to Toronto I came, and one of the first things I did was book an appointment with my medical doctor. And when I showed her that, she said, you have a really bad rash. So you can actually develop excessive moisture there. It can become too much of a moist environment. It can become itchy, all due to a rash because it's always covered, especially if you don't cleanse it properly. So I developed a rash. She told me, forget this, forget silicone, time to buy your bio oil. This, ladies and gentlemen, is where the bio oil comes in. It was very inexpensive. I read through all the ingredients as always, which I highly recommend, and I'm going to go through the ingredients here now, and I'm actually going to do a demo and I'm going to show you how I was using it. So I have been using this for more than a year. So let's talk about the primary benefits of this oil. Is actually reducing scars, everybody. It's scars, stretch marks, any kind of lesion. This pops up first online. So I was very hopeful about this. In 2018, they did a specific study on bio oil, and 14% of the people that used this on their stretch marks, as opposed to those who didn't, actually had good results. So overall, I was very hopeful about this. Let me go through the ingredients. I'm going to tell you what it feels like, and I'll show you too. So the first ingredient we're going to talk about is the antioxidant, and that's called the tocopherol acetate, and that's a form of vitamin E. There's rosemary leaf oil in here. That's the essential oil coming from the leaves of rosemary, of course, and that's part of the smell in here. That's an antioxidant. It's also antimicrobial. You probably know that. There's a lot of literature on that for when people are talking about different scalp conditions. Contains several fragrant components. So there's a lot of fragrant components in this specific rosemary leaf essential oil that's in here. There's calendula in here, which comes from the marigold extract, and that's typically used for skin repairing and soothing. So that all sounded good as well. Again, it's a plant extract. And in here, there's also an ester form of vitamin A, so a form of retinol, which I thought was super interesting. It's a retinol palmitate. And we all know, those of us who use retinol, it is the gold standard for acne scarring and fine lines and wrinkles. So I thought, okay, plus on this one too. There's also a lot of soothing ingredients in here. I mentioned a couple of them, but there's different flower oils and again, the calendula in here, and there's actually more soothing ingredients. So let's go through a little application, and she just told me to use this several times a day, no harm to it. So I would just pour it on like this. I literally just pour it on the scar, and you're supposed to rub it very harshly. And I have to tell you guys, whenever I do this, mentally it feels good. Why? Because the scar diminishes in the redness. It diminishes the redness right away as soon as I would do this. So mentally, it felt really good doing this. So at this point, I'm going to show you guys an extreme close-up of what it looks like, and you can see for yourself that it's still raised, it's still red around. The actual excision area has not decreased in size. I was not expecting it to. I just want it to flatten out and get lighter in color. So what did I do next? Well, I had to leave to go to Greece to start filming the TV series, and I was lucky enough to meet a physicist who started his own cosmetics line, which he doesn't like me calling it cosmetics because this is really therapeutic stuff. This is very highly potent snail secretion formulations. This is the cream I happen to have right here. You guys can see. It's extremely thick, and I'm actually going to put this over my scar right now. So I did not go to him for help about this. I interviewed him for the TV series, and we spent hours on his farm telling me about the wonders of snail secretion and how he was able to create these award-winning throughout Europe. These are award-winning products based on highly potent snail secretion, and you probably have never heard of them because he never advertises. It's called Panacea 3, and he has all sorts of different serums and creams based on snail secretion. So I had heard about it, of course, because I'm a avid fan and user of snail secretion products from K-Beauty, but the consistency is completely different. And he said that this will help it, but because the scar is now older, he called it an old scar, it's going to take a very long time for it to be basically cured. He said that the fresher the scar, the easier it is to be cured with snail secretion. His products have a very high level of phenols in them. Polyphenols. It's the Greek word. It comes from Polyphenols. What does that mean? Poly means many, and phenols is an antioxidant. You can find it in plants, you can find it in herbs and fruits and vegetables. And most famously, you can find it in good extra virgin olive oil. And just to show you how high quality his products are, in the average good extra virgin olive oil, you can find about 940 to 1,000 milligrams per kilogram of phenols in the product. In his product, you can find 3,000 milligrams per kilogram of phenols. Again, it's an antioxidant. And what does this antioxidant do? Now, this is really important, and this is why I've been testing this out since July. Now, the antioxidants, they may reduce oxidative stress to the body. What does that mean? Oxidative stress occurs when there's a change, a bad change in your cells and your tissues. So that is very bad for the body, because according to Dr. Gayas and all the literature I found, when you have oxidative stress in the body and that deterrence or bad change in cells and tissues, that often can lead to chronic diseases. Again, I'm not a physician, so I'm not going to get into details. You guys can Google all this. It's all 100% there in the literature. Although the information on phenols is growing, it is still quite unsophisticated. I believe it's still unsophisticated in comparison to what I have learned from experts that I have interviewed. And as a footnote here, season 5 of the TV series that I'm working on, Star Foodies, I filmed that on a Greek island called Aegina, and my local showrunner, the fixer, was using polyphenols to fight a chronic illness for years and years and years, and he was actually an expert, so I got extra education there. I don't want this video to be about polyphenols, but I want to tell you that the snail secretion has its own wound healing and hydrating components. It's full of allantoin. However, it is also very, very high in polyphenols. Again, it is the antioxidant that comes from herbs, from fruits. You can find it in cocoa. You can find it in whole apples. Again, extra virgin olive oil. And the point of having these antioxidants is that this will reduce the oxidative stress to your body, which then can lead to chronic illnesses. Okay, so we've got the antioxidant. You want to avoid the oxidative stress. And of course, knock on wood, we don't want to have any illnesses. So his products are very high in that. You want to reduce the inflammation in the body, on the skin, any way you intake this externally or internally. And then we have all the wound healing and the hydrating benefits of the snail secretion. So I think within the last few months I've been using this, I feel that it does look better, but according to Dr. Gayas, the improvement on this scar, because it's a keloid scar and so raised, is going to be extremely slow. He said that if I wanted to undergo a surgery where they did another excision and it was bloody and fresh, he said that the snail secretion would heal the scar very, very quickly. And again, that was his professional opinion. He's developed this skin care line or form of these remedies with another group of doctors, and they're highly awarded in Europe. I'm going to put all the awards here. And again, they do not advertise, excluding nominally, on social media. So that's where I'm at right now. I am going to be hopefully seeing this doctor in Greece again very soon, but we do correspond regularly, so I am going to be following his instructions and just other further products that he can recommend for the scar. Just in conclusion, to let you guys know, he does believe it is now a keloid scar that will take a very long time to dissipate, if ever, with his specific snail secretion formulas. And there's really nothing else I can do except for another surgery. And just to coincide with that, the doctor at the hospital, she did tell me that that was another option for me, which I do not want to undergo, because they can do more to help heal a fresh scar than an older scar. You can read about that when you read about people's keloids experiences. Okay, everybody, I hope that was really helpful. I tried to give y'all as much information and background as possible. If you have any specific inquiries, if you're going through something, scarring, perhaps a keloid, or we're thinking about trying snail secretion, please feel free to put those inquiries in the comments below, and I will get back to you. And I will also be uploading additional footage and interviews and just more chats with Dr. Gayas about the power of snail secretion and of course the polyphenols. And of course, if you want to be notified about all this type of content, the best thing to do is to subscribe and be notified, because my content is very diverse. Of course, I work in film and television, but I am a beauty enthusiast, so I really love to combine that all together. So if there's something really specific you want to see or you're waiting for, the best thing to do is subscribe. You'll be notified, and then you can choose the specific content that you want to see. And of course, I am always open to hearing about ideas that you guys may want to hear about. Okay, I will see you all in the next one. Be well until then. Be soon.